So on the surface, some people might look at golf and think it's an individual sport as opposed to a team sport, but is that actually a fair observation?
Well, I mean, as you say, clearly it is an individual sport, and I managed to get myself on to become a professional golfer pretty much on my own from the age of 14. I had my goal to be a professional golfer, and then I went hell for leather for that, threw all my eggs into one basket at 16, left school and kind of went for it. And by the age of 20, I managed to get myself on tour, earning a living from playing golf, which was one of my first goal. But 3 or 4 years into my professional career, I soon realised that I couldn't achieve great things, playing Ryder Cups and trying to win the biggest tournaments without some help. So thinking of David Howell as a mini business really, and I realised I needed consultants. So yeah, I guess I was one of I wouldn't say the first players, but certainly one of the players 15 years ago that did surround myself with coach, personal trainer, physiotherapist, putting consultant, and literally I was entourage man for a few years. So I guess I soon realised that I had to build my own team around me. So when it comes to golf being an individual sport, yeah, most of the guys out there now, somewhere there is their own team that helps them obviously try and play the best golf that they can be. So I guess that's my experience of building a team, a business team to help me on my way, and it's been successful at times, and then like most things, obviously there's been some ups and downs along the way, and I can tell you plenty of those staff members or consultants have bit the dust, probably a little bit too quickly as well at times, but that's certainly, and managing those relationships was something obviously when you're on your own, I had no experience of doing. I was just a golfer hitting the ball around the field. And then, bit by bit, you almost feel like you have created this environment where you have got staff members or sort of people on the payroll, and managing those things was something that I had to learn pretty fast. I got in pretty fast, so I've got an interest in management style. It seems to be pretty much sort of verbally abusing them, and I hope they find some humour in it, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I guess that's how I really would say the team part of golf comes into things.
I'm on the other side of things. I'm always getting verbally abused as opposed to actually giving it out myself.
So from your point of view, Chris, then, so obviously you're in a team environment where you were within Exeter Chiefs. So how did you find, what makes good team spirit, and what's your experiences of being in a team environment?
Well, after David's incredible intro and the chip over there, I feel it's only right I kind of do myself a bit of justice as well. But those that don't know me, hopefully you all do know me. I am Chris Whitehead. I used to be a former Exeter Chiefs legend and all round good bloke. I know Graham Cridlin and Nick Sprague have heard that before, so apologies for those. But yeah, no, I guess I've been involved in team sports all my life really, and similar to David, I've always had a bit of a, bless you Harry, I've always had a bit of a bloody mindedness that I was always going to be a rugby player. And I guess David's the type of guy, and golfers and people that are high end in an individual sport we're always envious of those kind of people, because ultimately we are individuals that have to kind of perform within a team environment week in, week out, which is not as probably easy as it, bless you, which is probably as easy as it's made out every now and then. But two examples, great examples and completely contradicting examples are, I signed from Coventry Rugby Club when I was fired from Leicester Tigers, not for any wrongdoings as such, but just being too small and probably not good enough. So I went to Coventry and then subsequently went to London Wasps. So I spent 2 years in London Wasps, which I absolutely hated. I've never ever had a good word to say about it, certainly in the press anyway. It was just a miserable experience. I kind of signed there as a third choice rugby player that was, hoping for somebody else to get injured. I turned up on day one, there was no rugby kit for me. It was almost like they didn't even know kind of I was existing. So I lived in Teddington, we trained in Acton, which is about 8 or 9 miles away, and there was no real kind of hub, so to speak, and that's an absolute clanger there, because obviously that's what we've been talking about, but there's no real kind of, I know, I'll pick my paycheck up in a minute or two, but there's no real kind of environment where all the players lived together. We had to travel, of course, to High Wycombe, which was about 40 minutes away, to your own home ground, which was miserable. You had to drive on your own. I never had any mates, so I had to drive on my own, and there was no real team spirit whatsoever, where, contradicting obviously, of course, to the Exeter Chiefs, where I've had the last 5 seasons, very successful seasons, where everything is about a team environment. The majority of the players live in a place called Kings Heath. The fact that KFC is right next to it is no real relation whatsoever, but it's just the fact that everybody lives together. I don't live there, it's miserable. But obviously we train together at Sandy Park every single day, and that gives you a massive advantage of being in part of a team. We live together virtually. Every day off that we have is Thursdays. We call that business lunch, where there's not real much business spoke about, just what the boys were up to at the weekend and their conkers that happened at that weekend, but I won't tell you too much about that at the minute. But real two contradicting sides of things, certainly within team environments. London Wasps was no teamwork whatsoever. Serge Betts and Simon Shaw, Lawrence Delalio, players like that would have 4 or 5 days off in the training week, turn up to team run on Friday, and they'd be starting when, us young spunkers as it was, were kind of working our bums off to train as hard as we could just for an opportunity, and we never really got it, where Rob Baxter's always instilled, you work hard, you're going to be a part of the team. Did that just about sums it up? Or?
Tell me Wasps didn't win everything inside.
Yeah, they did. That was yeah.
Well, let's all go.
Yeah, bitter lemons.
And Mark, you touched on that as well as part of your presentation. So, given how fast-paced the entrepreneurial world can be and how often it changes, how important is goal setting for you and for the team?
Holding a team question.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, are you still on team? Yeah.
Well, very quickly, these guys are far mentioned than me. In terms of teams and people, we'll talk about our team, how important it is, but one observation from investing in small companies, 3 things that matter for me is people, people and people, nothing else. I've watched the most boring of businesses achieve brilliant results through great people, and I've watched brilliant ideas get totally messed up by people who can't execute. And every investment that's ever gone wrong for me has really been let down by poor execution. So for me, it's people, people and people.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll move on to goals then, sorry.
Good, David.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So, from your point of view, David, how important is goal setting for your career, and how important has it been?
Well, very, very, very important, obviously. But I mean, when you posed that question earlier, or when you proposed the question that you sent me over email a while back, I think, well, goal setting. Have I always done it? Have I not? And I guess I have. I just didn't really realise it. At 14, I gave up football to concentrate on golf. Clearly, I was going to be brilliant at football, and so I ditched that. And my sole goal was to become a European tour professional and earn my living playing golf. So I think anyone, any business or any individual, there's always got to be the goal. And the lesson I learned along the way was those goals have got to keep moving. I did become a professional golfer, which I was pleased about to start with. That was good. I thought going to be good enough for me, but you soon realise I've got to push the barriers a little bit more and head on again. My ultimate goal really was, and actually when I use the word ultimate, was to play in a winning Ryder Cup side, which I managed to do twice. And actually, so I'd achieved my goal, and sure enough, my career went straight into a slide for 3 or 4 years. I hadn't set any new goals. I mean, it's just quite simple. You hear it in all sorts of walks of life, I guess, and I fell foul of that simplest of mistakes as well. So mine have always been very simple and clear. Didn't need much thought, become a golfer, but it was a very clear, precise goal, and obviously I set about achieving that with gusto, and it, generally speaking, worked out. So yeah, they're clearly very important.
Chris, then, team environment that you've worked in, and goal setting, is that something that's always been a feature of your club experience?
Yeah, it's probably quite rare for sportsmen, certainly rugby players, certainly the Exeter Chiefs, to probably say that we set goals. We've always had this mantra that we don't really have real clear targets, we don't have goals, we're just happy to be here and we'll work hard for each other. But to be quite frank, it's a load of rubbish. Every single season that I've been at Exeter Chief, and any club that I've really been to, you have clear goals, whether that's to finish top 4 or top 6 or whatever it would be. Certainly something we did at Exeter was to target certain games, so there'd be a bunch of 4 or 5 or 6 games, whatever it would be, and we'd set goals within those games to get, I don't know, say a 10 points out of 4 games or 12 points out of 5 games or whatever it would be. And that was sometimes, mostly with rugby players, we're a simple bunch measured with a reward. So for example, a coffee machine, which obviously powered the fellas quite well. We managed to achieve that one. I think one season, if we finished top 4, the club would take us to Las Vegas, so they probably had no real aspirations for us to finish top 4. Top 6 that same season was the Costa del Sol, which was supposed to be Marbella. It turned out subsequently to be Torremolinos, which is an absolute dive. I think.
I've got a place in Torremolinos.
Sorry, David. Bangarola. I'm flying out to Dubai tomorrow. I know that's a load of rubbish. I've got to go and work in IT consultancy. But yeah, so that same season, I think if we finished 8th or below, We had to pay for ourselves to go to Butlins. Or I think even worse than that, you ended up with a day trip to Rotherham. So we've always had goals, whether the players in the media will say it. I think what's important, and David touched on it, is those goals have to be moved every now and then. Certainly for me, I was always going to be a rugby player, similar to David. He was going to be a footballer, but he wasn't good enough. And the same, I was short, fat and slow, so I never had a chance. But obviously more recently, getting injured, the injury happened with a neck injury about a season and a half ago. And there and then I kind of thought, right, I've got 14, 15 weeks to get myself back available for training to be playing again. And realistically, it was probably never going to happen. But I think it's very important that you always have those goals, and whether they're achievable, I think they've got to be. But sometimes, as a rugby player and an individual, that my goals weren't necessarily always that achievable. But I always needed something to drive to be successful.
And Mark, from in the business context, setting targets.
Yeah, I think
resonate with that?
tried to be clear on the goal we're setting for Burrington Estates. We're very focused on having clear goals. I mean, my big advice to people starting off with small companies is start with the end. So start with where you're headed and what's your ultimate destination. I think people often start companies with very woolly thinking, and so that'd be my big advice. And I've watched success and not success, but I think those people are very clear on their destination. Often the journey, the destination varies, but my soundbite is start with the end for small companies.
Great stuff. And then so the final area is focus, which we again touched on in the slide. So Dave, from your point of view, as distractions happen or as life gets more complicated, how important was it to keep focus, and how did you actually manage to achieve that?
Yeah, pretty difficult. I'm not sure. I have 3 kids under 3 we've got, and yeah, my focus has gone down the Swanee. But yeah, I had a chat with the wife in July about that actually. So I think for me as a golfer, there's daily, short-term daily focus. Are you able to keep the clutter of life out of your mind while you're actually over hitting your shot? And I came down with a very, very simple technique in the last couple of years with my latest coach. I simply mark myself out of 10 on my focus every day I play golf. Seemed like I dismissed this idea with my coach. It's like, this is ridiculous. I mark myself on 2 or 3 different categories on a daily basis, but one of them being focus. And it's rare that I walk off 10 out of 10. Actually, I realise I have not necessarily left a shot out there, but just simply wasn't as focused on a daily basis as I thought I always was. I didn't think it was going to be an issue, but when I marked myself out of it, out of 10, I realised that very rarely did I come out with 10. That goes for practice as well, of course. I've wasted so much time practicing, so basically thinking I'm working and being efficient or making things better, and it's just been a waste of time because my practice wasn't focused. It was basically just a waste of space. So one of the things I've changed a lot in the last couple of years is I practice less, but I try and practice better with a clearer focus and more meaning to it. I try and pressurise my own practice. So I try and give myself more time off, and then I'm much more focused on a daily basis when I am actually working, and that seems to have helped really well, especially with the life-work balance with now having a family. So I think that's the way I would come at it. One little anecdote, I don't know if any of you, any golfers in the room, but when Seve Ballesteros, the great Seve, was captain, focus was his word for the week. I didn't actually play in his team, but Lee Westwood did. It was his first Ryder Cup in Spain down at Valderrama, and Seve, in his Spanish-English accent, was, "Focus, we must focus, always focus. Lee, focus." He said, "What were you saying? Focus." and Lee said that the first tee says 10,000 people, atmosphere, you will never experience anything like this, he says. And he rolled up 2 pieces of cotton wool, long pieces, or loo roll or whatever, and he tried to give them, and he said, "Lee, the noise on the first tee is going to be so loud, you must put this." He was being serious. And he gave Lee Westwood, for his debut appearance, 2 pieces of cotton wool, and he had them hanging out of his ear. And Lee said, "Well, but Seve, 20 years I've been trying to get to this point. I want to hear the crowd. That's why I'm here." But people were getting a little bit confused. Focus. They'd
have done well to get anything in these ears, unfortunately. It's funny though, my wife has a similar marking structure to my day-to-day
Oh,
life.
you guys
around the
actually got
house.
similar ears.
Yeah, no, she hasn't. Bless her. Well, thank God she hasn't. No, she's got a very similar marking system, a 10 out of 10. But I'm yet to get my full sticker book. Just yet. I don't read very well. What was the question?
It was about focus.
Focus. That's right. Yeah, no focus. I guess within teams and any kind of thing that you do. I won't relate it to business because I've not been in business long enough. I suppose I've played rugby for the last 12 years, but I guess it's very, very important to have some kind of focus. Certainly the young boys in the back, Harry and his mates, will start to realise the dedication and things. If they did want to be sporting gentlemen, that they've got to start putting things on the side. At 14, 15, all my mates seemed to be going out and doing things that I desperately wanted to do, but I had really strict parents that wanted me to concentrate, and that was very ran by myself as well. You've got to be focused. You've got to eat the right things, you've got to not go out drinking, you've got to get the right recovery, you've got to go and train the next day, and all these things that you probably hear week in, week out about what it takes. There's a book over there by Johnny Wilkinson, and he's probably the clearest example of over-focused bloke, but you just see what he's achieved in the rugby world. So much so, he's so focused that he's almost a bit weird. He's a very, very strange character, but achieved what he's had to achieve. I've always been relatively focused, but I guess I've not made it to the top per se, and I've not really had to. I've always had 14 or 28 other blokes around within a team environment that have been able to pull you back in to be focused. It's probably one of my negatives as a professional, that I've always kind of dibbed and dabbed out of things. But it's very, very important to have focus. Certainly my key focus was to be a rugby player, and no matter what I did, that's what I was going to be. And I guess I've kind of lived off the back of that for the last 10 years.
Great stuff. So just one more from me, and then we can open up to the floor. And to be honest, this is the one I've been looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
So when Mark showed that diagram of all of the strategic and exciting new idea generation, that was all what Mark drives. He's the entrepreneur and the idea generator.
Yeah.
I'm the person that's got to do all of the actual work that all that idea generation creates. So is focus something you're naturally strong on?
What do you think? To be honest, I'm the case study for not being focused. I can see from my career I've been a bit all over the place, but it's one thing the other way around that I admire so much about professional sports people. Looking at David, is 20 years playing golf every day. I love playing golf, I just couldn't do that. And the dedication, as Chris was talking about in the rugby world, is that to be a professional sportsman, you have to be laser focused on the same thing every day. So I think in business, focused people. My big sort of hero, I guess, is Steve Jobs from Apple Word, creating the most valuable company. And we've got that slide there, right? One of the quotes that he said, and I've bought his book along, and I sort of follow what he does. I don't necessarily do what he does, but wouldn't be here. I'd be on a yacht in South of France. Focus and simplicity. Apple created the most valuable company in the world with 4 products. So it's something I'm personally trying to work on. It's why I moved to Devon to focus on Burrington Estates. And you achieve what you focus on in life. So in a business environment, we need to learn from these guys and apply focus and discipline to what we're doing.
More David than me.
Great stuff. So happy to open up to the floor. I think we've got the guys here. Is there any questions anyone has or would like to ask? So.
David, I just wondered what the other criteria were that you rate yourself on every day, if you're happy to share.
Patience. Patience and accepting my bad shots. So that's a very hard thing to do. So always moving forward, not worrying about the stuff that's already happened. Can't do anything about that. So focusing on what's ahead of me rather than behind. It changes a little bit. Caddy interaction. My caddy's an interesting little fella, so sometimes we don't get on all that well. We do get on well, but I don't listen to him very well. Basically, he'll say stuff and I'm just not listening, and then I'll have done something and I'll say, well, why have we done that? And he said, well, I said it was 170 over the water, and so I have to make sure that he's my closest ally, obviously, on the course. So am I truly listening, or is it just going in one ear and out the other? So I often sometimes I do mark myself out of 10 on that. And then our course management, so our strategy on a daily basis, what are we trying to do, where are we trying to hit the ball, and why. We run through that before we go out, why do we want to attack a pin on the green, and why do we want to sort of defend? So we talk through our strategy beforehand in an ideal world, and then have we executed? So if I come off and we've made a couple of stupid mistakes because we attacked a pin that we were going to play away from, then that's a couple of black marks, and 7 out of 10, and the caddy's getting a bollocking. yeah.
Question, Harry?
Who are the best golfers that you've played with?
Oh, well, Tiger Woods. I've beaten him a few times, Harry. Yeah. 4 times out of 5. However, the time he beat me, he did beat me by 12. I will add that, and I don't mind that. Sevi, well, I mentioned Sevi earlier.
Yeah.
Sevi Ballesteros, played with Sevi a good few times. Nice little anecdote, actually. Very fortunate, if you ever follow the Ryder Cup, Sevi Ballesteros and Jose Maria Olazabal were the most successful partnership ever in the Ryder Cup. And Sevi also set up a tournament called the Sevi Trophy in his name, which was Great Britain and Ireland versus Europe, so a Ryder Cup style event. And I was very fortunate to play with Lee Westwood twice against Sevi and Jose Maria Olazabal. So this legendary Ryder Cup partnership, I had the chance to play against them, and both times Lee and I managed to win on the last green, 1-up against this great Spanish pairings, which was a great thrill for me. And the second time this happened, Sevi, you always shake hands on the 18th green whenever you finish, and Sevi shook our hands, and he said, oh, David, congratulations, you know, you're not a bad player for a tall man with short arms. Best backhanded compliment. And I said, well, what, really? He said, you're short? Your arms are very short, no? I said, oh, no, I think I'm quite well put together. Oh, no, it's short. Jose, come here. I end up like a couple of kids on the playground. Me and Sevi stood back to back with 2 times Masters champion Jose Maria Olazabal measuring our arms. And they both agreed I had very short arms, no? So that was how Sevi, great, sadly departed now, obviously, but it's a lovely moment for me. Actually, seeing your head cut and pasted on Rory's thing earlier, believe it or not, a year or so later, I'd happened to have won the Dubai Desert Classic 4 years after Sevi had won it. And this one particular year, we had it was the 20th anniversary, so they had all 20 winners, sort of at 10-foot high murals on the back of the grandstand, and everyone was crouched down with this big trophy that we won. And I was the only one holding it, so my picture didn't fit in the run of trophy shots. And lo and behold, they'd cut and pasted my head and put me on Sevi's body from 4 years earlier. So I finally found out what it was like with normal legs, Spanish hairy arms. Yeah, it wasn't a pretty sight. No. Yeah.
And so, Dave, what about the Ryder Cup and Phil Mickelson, all that stuff going on? What's your view on that?
Well, yeah, for any golfers who did watch it, it was all a bit of a faux pas. Well, talking about leadership and business, the great Tom Watson, who's a legendary golfer. I'd have him down as one of my golfing heroes, and wouldn't have a bad word said about him from a golfer. But it turns out that Tom, being the captain of the American side, 66 years old, I think he's 64. Looking after a team of 20-somethings, that happened to be the youngest American side for 20 years, was maybe a step too far. He wasn't in touch with the players, and I think he kind of underestimated what Ryder Cups teams nowadays expect from their captain, and Tom thought that his sort of playing persona and ego would be enough to front the team and get a winning combination, but it turns out it wasn't, and he needed to put more effort into to take 12 individuals and really blend them into a team. He didn't do that very well, which was a shame.
Chris.
Thank God for that.
I'm
about to sit down.
I concur.
How do Wasps survive moving to Coventry?
Fantastic question. I personally, with obviously a relatively close connection to Coventry, my father-in-law was on the board of directors there, and I personally think it's an absolute miserable move for London Wasps to do that. You imagine Exeter Chiefs going and all of a sudden playing in Sunderland or Newcastle or somewhere like that. The community that we've got is just ridiculous. It would never happen. But in saying that, there's the other side to it as well, that it could do wonders for the Rugby Club of Coventry in terms of if they got their head around not being a Premiership ambitious team, which, to be quite frank, they probably are starting to get that way now, desperately trying to get back into the Championship. But Wasps or Coventry will now act as a feeder club to Wasps, so any injured players or players that aren't quite up to Premiership standard, well, I guess will go to Coventry to play. So it could do great things for the club, but in terms of, you know, Ricoh Arena, there's 26,000 seats available. I think it'd be a miserable place to play as a rugby player. I've played at London Irish before, which is a great stadium for football if it's full, but if you've got 3,000 or 4,000 people rattling around there, there's nothing to really play for. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I personally am not a big fan of it. I think it's very disrespectful to the local fans. But what local fans really have they got? I suppose, you know, they live in the city of London and they play in High Wycombe. So it's a tough one. And personally, I hope they fail. No, I don't. But I do.
No bitterness there.
No, they were very successful.
Go on, Andy.
Got one for this, Chris. Sorry, sorry.
Let Andy on the back.
Yeah, gents, just two questions really aimed at both of you from a professional sports career. When you got into it, obviously you were passionate and had the drive to get into that sport. Was there a moment then, or when was there a moment, that it became a career more than a passion? Was the first question. Later on during that career, when was it you started thinking about what you were going to do for retirement?
I haven't started thinking about that yet, but that's one of the beauties of golf. Obviously, we can keep playing, but I've got my fingers in a few different pies, I guess, with the Sky TV and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I've never felt like I've gone to work for a day in my life. Really, I'm very, very fortunate, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to say. You know, golf was my hobby, my passion. It becomes well, I wouldn't say my job. It's just my life, really. It has been. It's always been that way, and. I suppose I have got to the point, probably 10 or so years into, I don't really play social golf anymore. You know, I'm not going to go off and play golf with my mates. My time's too valuable with my family now to do that. So it is my job. It is my profession. I think of it that way. But I can't say there was an absolute point in time. But I certainly know I still enjoy it, and I can't see that really as frustrating a game as golf is. It's just a way of life, really. I certainly haven't got to the point where I'm not trying to get better or improve from where I am now, and you know, hopefully we can go on to, if you're lucky, you can go on to your 50 and keep going playing wise in golf. So it's a very unique sport, as we know in that who can play professional sport at the age of 52. Not many people, but golfers.
How did you feel when you went past that 50 mark?
Yeah. Very good. Should we switch places?
I dread to think what I'll be like body shape wise when I'm 52, that is for sure. It was very, very real for me. The minute I kind of became a professional was 16, 17. My father's an engineer in a metal fabricating factory. So, like I said before, I went to a very posh school, very lucky enough to go to a posh school, but absolutely hated it. So Harry, close your ears. Hated it. So I was always desperate to go and earn some kind of money. So I'd work in the factory with my father, drilling thousands of holes into box steel, which was great because I'd get cash at the end of the day. Don't tell the tax man. But yeah, no, I was getting cash and it was good for me to have my independence. Then I very, very fortunately got signed up by Leicester Tigers. And all of a sudden, I think my first paycheck was £7,500 for the year. But for me then, I was a professional rugby player. So it was no money whatsoever, but I was a professional rugby player. I kind of reached my goals, almost arrogantly. But for me, that was all I was going to be then after that. And then stupidly, got 10 years down the line, sat in meetings at 17, 18 years old, where people were telling me, look, this is going to end one day. You know, you're going to have to start thinking about life after rugby or life after sport. You're going to eventually have to retire from something that you love doing and go and get a real job. And I never ever thought that you think you're invincible as a rugby player, as I guess any sportsman, certainly if you're lucky enough to go to 50, you are. But, you know, and you just think you're indestructible. And unfortunately, it came about 6 months ago when I got the news that I'd never be able to play again. I was like, Christ, what am I going to do now? And I've very, very been fortunate enough to build up a network of people, certainly within Exeter, that I've always had the time of day to speak to. And now I'm clinging on to them to give me a job. So so here I am now. But yeah, that's kind of where I've gone from realisation at 16 to 26, 27, where I thought, crikey, I'm no longer allowed to do that. What am I going to do now? Everybody desperate for the toilet?
Rob?
Yeah, Chris, in terms of Exeter and where they are now, they've obviously got promotion to the Premiership. Many people predicted they would come straight back down.
Yeah.
As a relationship with small businesses as well, struggling in their first few years in terms of finance.
Yes.
What's the magic ingredient and why are they still where they are? And how has the success come about on a playing budget that's a lot less than everybody else?
Yeah, I don't know in terms of playing budget-wise. I mean, I was speaking to somebody earlier on about the fact that I was a Championship player given an opportunity within a Premiership club, so that was massive for me at the time. And I think that will get you so far. So now we've been, over in the seasons, for the last 4 or 5 seasons, we've been recruiting Championship players that have got us a good level, a medium level where we've been 6th, 7th or 8th or whatever it had been. I'm kind of of the opinion that you've got to start recruiting some world class players like Thomas Waldron or Dean Mumm or Tom Johnson and people like that, which we are starting to do in dribs and drabs, and that's what's starting to become a bit of a success story for Exeter, the fact that we've been a solid base of blokes that would work very, very hard for each other, and we'd knock 10 bells out of you know, for whatever the word is, I won't say it in front of the children, but we've knocked 10 bells out of each other, and we've worked very, very hard, and we've become successful. But for me, we've almost got to a level where we've now got to start looking at the bigger picture, and if we are going to be a top 4 club, and we have got real ambitions to go and win the Premiership, then you're going to have to start bringing in slightly more world-class players, so to speak. Not keeping the same kind of squad environment, of course, but it frustrates the hell out of me. People, every single year, certainly from this side of the room now as a rugby player, people doubting Exeter Chiefs, so to speak, and not thinking that they were going to be successful this year. Okay, last season we won the LV Cup, which I was a massive part of, and scored the winning try, of course. But forgetting that, it was a pretty dismal season with the Premiership. I think we finished 8th, and thank God for the LV Cup. Whereas at the start of this season, everybody thought we were going to be failing and it'd be a real struggle for us. And it just goes to show that the team belief and the team goals, I'm guessing, and we're currently 3rd at the moment, and it's going well. And it's all thanks to small businesses and the Chiefs family that they are, you know, constantly harping on about, that is massive within the rugby club and the community.
Great. Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up there. Thanks very much for listening. How you found that interesting. Thanks very much to the guys. Really insightful. The stuff you were saying. We've got a few drinks and nibbles, so feel free to drink a nibble. We've also got Will with the red thing on. To anyone who wants to have a nosy in any of the flats. And thanks very much.